Alright, so this is the classic problem in trigonometry where they give us the value for one of the trig functions. They don't tell us what the angle is. They give us the value of the trig function and they tell us what quadrant we're in. Let's talk about this quadrant information and what this does for us. If they tell us we're in quadrant 3, that tells us the signs of our functions. In quadrant 3, the cosine's negative. Well, they gave us the negative, so that's good. That fits. The sine is also negative. And then because of that, the cosecant and the secant are also going to be negative because they always are going to share the same sign as the sine and cosine. The tangent and the cotangent will be positive because you find the tangent just by taking sine and dividing it by cosine. And we'll talk more about that. I'm going to approach this using trigonometric identities and not triangles. I've talked about it before with triangles. Here I'm just going to deal with it just with identities. The first identity I'm going to use is a Pythagorean identity that sine squared of an angle plus cosine squared of an angle equals 1. This always is true for any angle. And I'm going to use this to find sine of theta. So I have sine squared of theta plus cosine squared of theta. Cosine is negative 3/5, so I'm going to plug that in. That squared equals 1. And now I'm just going to solve this for sine of theta. So I get sine squared of theta plus 9/25 equals 1. I'm going to subtract 9/25 from both sides. When I do this, I need to remember that 1 is 25/25. So I subtract 9/25 from both sides. And again, it's 16/25 because 1, or 25/25 minus 9/25 gives me 16/25. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the square root of both sides of this equation. And what I'll get is that sine of theta equals plus or minus 4/5. Now importantly, this gives me two answers, but I know in this situation I don't want the positive version, I just want the negative version. So this tells me that the sine of this theta is negative 4/5. And again, I choose negative because I know what quadrant I'm in. I'm in quadrant 3. But the second I have sine and cosine, cosecant and secant are very easy. They're just the inverse of those numbers. So cosecant is the inverse of sine, so now cosecant is 5/4. And secant is the inverse of cosine, so I have negative 5/3. Again, they share the same sign as sine and cosine. They're just the reciprocals. Now let's find tangent. One of the identities says that tangent of any angle is just the sine divided by cosine. And so to find the tangent here, what we're going to do is just divide our values for sine and cosine. Sine we found is negative 4/5. And we're going to divide that by the cosine, which is negative 3/4. Or 3/5, excuse me. When I divide these, the negatives cancel each other out, so it's going to end up being a positive. And I do 4/5 divided by 3/5. I'll just do that on the side here. I got 4/5 divided by 3/5. Invert and multiply. And I get 4/3. So that means the tangent of theta equals 4/3. So I have that now. And then cotangent is easy. It's just the reciprocal of tangent, so it would be 3/4. And there is all my trigonometric values.